So what I did my project on, my IAP project, was concussion management. I'm Stahr. I spent the past 8 weeks here studying concussion management, specifically as it pertains to public high schools in the United States. And the side of concussion management I wanted to study was the students' transition back into the classroom, their return to academics, or what it's sometimes called is the return to learn process. The first 4 weeks I was here, I did the research project, was really trying to get used to the sources, and one of the first things I identified were the experts and what they were saying, what they thought was important for the student as they return back to the classroom. In general, kind of what the consensus was that as students return back to the classroom needs to be individualized, there needs to be a gradual reentry plan, there needs to be academic accommodations, and they also stress the idea of a support network, that in order to really deal with the student and make sure that their recovery is successful, there needs to be the work between teachers, healthcare professionals, parents, and the students. The reason why I identified the experts was mainly to try and discover what their consensus statements were. Currently, these experts, as well as a lot of others, meet every year. They have been for 4 years, and they come out with a new consensus statement each year describing the new research that they have, evaluating their own credibility with the research, which is really important. And also kind of the second reason why I really wanted to look at who they are and what they're doing is because they have so much influence. They have the influence over the hospital protocols. They have influence over the National Athletic Trainers protocols. They influence what the government is publishing, the CDC. And perhaps most importantly, with what I studied, is they have the power to influence the laws and the regulations based off of their research. I won't go over all of the people individually, but some of the three of the, what I really like is when all of them come together and they do work together. I find that that's when they create the best work, when they're all working together. But some of the ones who have contributed a lot individually are Robert Cantu. He has published over 300 articles. He's the editor of over 5 different journals. Mark Aubrey, he's the chief medical officer of the International Ice Hockey Federation. The credentials of these people are really just amazing. They all deal a lot with the national sports leagues, the NFLs, and it's really interesting to see how they influence their protocols too. There's also Michael Collins. He's reviewed over 70 sources. All of the people are constantly reviewing each other, which is really important and really interesting. And he's also the head of sports medicine concussion program. They all kind of had their own separate program. They're from all over the world, Australia, Canada, the US. This guy right down here, he's from Boston. Go Boston. They're all really cool too. So one other thing that I was looking at were the concussion laws, specifically to see if what the experts and what they were recommending was in the laws, and I discovered that their recommendation in terms of academic accommodations and a gradual reentry into the classroom were not reflected in the laws. Only 3 states currently have academic accommodations in their laws, and all 50 states have a concussion law. The laws primarily focus on a student's return to athletics. That's mainly because the law started in Washington, and after a high school football player, Zachary Leifstead, is now severely disabled and permanently disabled as a result from returning back to athletics too early. I think had the students and had there been an advocate for the return to academics, the laws might be reflecting something different. I also wanted to look at the awareness and the understanding of healthcare professionals too. So what I discovered was the fact that there wasn't really any laws about academic accommodations. It was being reflected in the knowledge of the healthcare professionals. So athletic trainers didn't really understand the importance of cognitive rest. So did physical therapists and other healthcare professionals, and that's especially huge. Athletic trainers are supposed to serve as the experts in concussion management for schools. They're supposed to act as that resource for schools, and not only are they unaware of how important this idea of cognitive rest, but schools don't even have access to a lot of the athletic trainers too, especially certified athletic trainers. There are a lot of EMTs that will call themselves athletic trainers, but it's something that you have to be certified in, that you have to train for. So given the fact that concussions affect both athletic rest and cognitive rest, yet the laws only reflected the athletic aspect of it and not the cognitive one, in addition to the awareness, my project that I wanted to do was to write a letter to my senators. I'm from Massachusetts, saying that they should support a national concussion law or regulation that would deal with the academic accommodations and the cognitive rest. My main argument was that there needs to be a nationalized concussion law to help minimize the varieties, create a stronger network that can deliver the same information, and extend protections to a larger group of citizens. Essentially, I just wanted to have a law address this huge gap, as well as some others that I've identified. So the senators from Massachusetts are Elizabeth Warren and Ed Markey. So I addressed it to them, but I also addressed it to you in the public. I decided that I wanted to make my letter open. The reasoning for that is awareness is incredibly huge, not only for athletic trainers, but for parents and students too. They have a lot of power in terms of making government decisions, influencing their policymakers, and considering that a lot of them have students, have friends that are participating in sports, it's something that they should know about too. That one more. The main argument in my plan that I really stress is an individualized plan, that students need to have team meetings with everyone in the school that a student would be meeting with. So that includes the teachers, that includes the school nurse, that includes administrators too, if need be, and also the fact that there needs to be written academic accommodations, such as longer times on tests, more time to complete projects, various other things and examples. This is something I had in my last presentation. As you can see, that they talk about how it's gradual. There isn't any time because of the fact that it needs to be individualized. They stress 24 hours symptom-free before moving on to the next step. And as you can see, that takes a lot of time for a student to recover. And the fact that all of this recovery takes so much time is the reason why you need that support network and the written academic accommodations. And then, yeah, some other things that I stress is that there needs to be better training and better access to information. This right here, it was taken from the CDC website. It's completely free. I just literally clicked on the website, found it, and it relates specifically to what I was studying. And it's designed for schools to access. Out of the 50 states, currently 8 of the laws require that the CDC mandates and protocols are used. I think it's kind of crazy that not all of them stress that, especially since their information is free. It's by the government, and it's useful too, and it's also easily accessible. And then another thing that I stress too a lot is better data collection. Barack Obama this past May held a concussion summit talking about the issue, meeting with the experts, and one of the conclusions he made was that there needs to be better data on sports concussions. I really truly believe that with the better data we can understand the problem a lot more, we can identify areas where students are at higher risk, and then we can better use resources to meet, to give the resource, we can use our resources to give it to the people who are at high risk too, which is really important. And then two of the other main ideas that I wanted to include was that these extensions should include private entities. It should also not only address public schools, but it should address private schools. It should address sports organizations, private gyms. It should address youth sports camps, and not all of the laws do that. You can get a concussion whether you're from a private school or a public school, so the fact that all of the population of private school students are at risk, it's incredibly dangerous for them, and it's certainly, not helping them. And then the second thing that I really argue is that, you can't really see it because it's blurred off, that the department should review the literature. There really should be a review of the literature every so often because of the new information that's coming out, because of all of the new research and all of the work that the experts are doing, which is really important. This right here was taken from an Oklahoma bill. Oklahoma was trying to update their concussion laws, and these were two of the things that they were trying to include in their laws because they hadn't before. Unfortunately, the bill did not pass, not for these reasons. The issue was whether you train volunteers or not. It had made it through the whole entire legislation process except for the final. Senators really had an issue with the idea of training volunteers, which is a debate I can get into more at the end. And then the last thing that I really argue is that there needs to be some form of penalties. There needs to be people reviewing it, monitoring it, and making sure that the law is being enforced. This right here was taken from the NFL's frequently asked question packet on the LISTED laws. The NFL is doing a lot of work into concussion research. This was their analysis. As you can see, currently none of them have it. I've actually researched it a bit more. Only Pennsylvania really has some form of penalty and some way to enforce the law. In that last page you just saw about the Oklahoma bill, they also included the idea of penalties, and there wasn't really any issues with the idea of penalties. Some examples that they provided in the Oklahoma law was lifetime ban for coaches who don't follow the concussion regulations, bans on athletic trainers, and other penalties to schools too if they don't follow it. So in conclusion, I really think that this topic is interesting because there's new information coming out, there's new research being done, a lot of money and resources is being put into it. During the concussion summit that Obama held, he announced new partnerships between major companies. It's millions of dollars, the NFL, the Ice Hockey Federation. Really everyone's kind of getting together and working together to address the topic, and as a result it's being covered in the media a lot too, so the public's aware of it. And because of that, I really feel that I can make some form of impact because of all of this research coming out. I feel that by me putting it in easier language to understand, it's easier for the public to access and kind of gain from that, which I really enjoy too. And also kind of to synthesize the information together too, which is really important. And also because of this new information coming out, the laws are being updated, which is really important for me, especially with my letter, because it means that legislators care. It means that legislators do want to solve this issue. The laws aren't being updated in terms of academic accommodations as much, which is why I wrote my letter. But the fact that they're trying to do things like extend it to private schools and make sure that the literature is being reviewed does indicate that academic accommodations can be done too. In the future, with my letter, I plan to revise and edit it some more. I really want to make sure that it's good and effective. I want to have important people in my life edit it, important people who I think who are really credible in the area somewhat can revise it and suggest things that would be helpful to them too. I found that the writing process here at Stanford, I've learned that it's much longer than it is in high school, so I do definitely want to take that time to take a break from it and come back to it. Some main ideas that I've stressed in the letter too that I didn't really cover before was that, and I had talked about this with my social movements professor, is that when you're arguing something like a law, you should try and put it in terms of laws. The fact that if you don't have the law, like why we need the law, and if you don't have the law, what are we losing? So some of the main ideas that I really stressed in the letter and really framed my arguments was the idea of loss. I explained how when a student doesn't return, when a student doesn't return safely and smoothly, that they can be depressed, anxiety, they can act out, they can't really access their learning, which is important. I tried to talk about how that would affect the cost of health care, the cost to families, also relearning the fact that students might have to repeat loss of academic time, which is really important too when I try to frame my arguments. And lastly, in terms of the IAP, I thought it was an amazing experience. I learned a lot about myself and the world around me, and I've become a better researcher, writer, reader because of it. I feel like while doing this project, I've gained a lot of skills and have a lot more to offer when it comes to future tasks, which I really enjoy. That's it.